Secretary Carter, some have suggested that military strikes against Iran could be both quick and effective without acknowledging the costs and consequences and risks that that might entail. Could you talk a little bit about what the primary risks, both to the U.S. and to our allies, would be if we had to take that course of action? And could you speak to what would set Iran's nuclear program back further, a military strike or this accord, in terms of timeline?
Well, speaking now just very generally and not specifically, the two things that make the successful implementation of the agreement preferable from that point of view to a strike is that the effects of a strike are temporary. And secondly, that Iran would, as I said earlier, respond to an American military strike upon Iran, and one needs to think through then what the subsequent steps are, including the possibility that Iran at that point would become irreconcilably committed to getting a nuclear weapon. Now, I say that's predicated on the effective implementation of this agreement, and effectively implemented, the agreement stops Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, not just for 10 years and not just for 15 years, but by dint of the provisions Secretary Moniz was talking about, way beyond that. So we're comparing that situation, which is effective implementation, complete implementation of this agreement, to the military option. Now, we also have to recognize that, that there may not be effective implementation of this agreement. We have to recognize there may not be any agreement, that, and so forth, and that's why we're under instructions from the President to preserve, and indeed we are improving, and I can't go into that here, right, the military option, because temporary as it is and so forth, it needs to be there because that's our fallback if that's the only path left.
Since we're pursuing this accord, under this accord, do you think that that option gets more effective and stronger or less effective over the course of implementation of this deal?
As I indicated earlier, from a purely technical and military point of view, it gets marginally more effective, and the reason for that is that we have a more complete understanding of where everything is that could be associated with our nuclear program that we might strike, and have more detail about the nature of those things, and so it just follows that we can.
That makes perfect sense.